Mayor Waldron, members of the City Council, I'm Philip Van Cleave. I'm representing the Virginia Citizens Defense League, gun rights organization. We were here a few months ago, I'm sure you remember. I'm here to address the police internal investigation of an incident at Tony's Restaurant where 7 law-abiding gun owners were kicked out of the restaurant and harassed, we felt, by the police officers. Several of the citizens filed a complaint, and the police department followed up with an investigation. However, I was greatly disappointed to see that investigation. After reading it, all I could conclude was it was a very thinly veiled whitewash cover-up of what happened, and I'll go into why I'm saying that. The police investigation is loaded with inconsistencies, contradictions, and the report ignores blatant admissions of wrongdoing to officers that are right there in some emails. It just ignores them. They're not there. For example, the report says in essence that the 7 gun owners, all of whom, by the way, have impeccable backgrounds, were all lying. Now, they didn't use the word lying, but I said in essence they're saying they were all lying, and all the 7 police officers were all telling the truth, except only where there was hard email or other audio evidence to show that perhaps there was a problem. In the other case, it wasn't an audio tape, it wasn't an email. The police were right every time, the citizens were wrong every time. And the police investigated themselves and found they really did nothing wrong. Now, who would have guessed that that would have happened? The report completely omits an admission of wrongdoing by the police. Hopefully the police don't ignore such admissions in all their investigations. The report says that certain topics were not brought up by the police at the restaurant, but high volumes of email traffic on those very topics directly, after the event, directly say otherwise. While the report claims that everything was handled professionally, politely, and in a low-key manner, the tone, attitude, and general disdain expressed towards the 7 law-abiding citizens in the emails exchanged by the officers after the event, again, contradicts that statement, as well as the 7 gun owners saying that things weren't quite done so quietly in the restaurant. As a blatant example of the whitewashing in the report, the police officers' emails admit that the officers coerced the restaurant owner into kicking out the 7 citizens. The report says that kicking out the citizens was the owner's idea, but that's not what the email said. I quote from the emails: "Let's get the owners to tell them to get the F out." They were referring to the gun owners, then talking to the manager and telling him to get them out. That is not the owner's idea in that case. They made it clear they approached the owner and said, kick these people out. Had a real problem with that, a legal problem as well. The report completely ignores an incriminating email and reprimands the officers on their bad language. Well, okay, bad language. That's, obviously it wasn't, they didn't refer to these gun owners in a good sense of good language or a friendly way. On the other hand, that's not the point. Language is one thing. I haven't called a lot of names, it doesn't bother me. But getting me kicked out of, I wasn't one of them, but getting kicked out of a restaurant for something I wasn't doing anything wrong, that's a problem. Basically, the officers are taking away the gun owner's civil rights in this case under the color of law, and that's ignored. But the foul language, the report won't put up with that. And I'll bet the FBI would not ignore a 1974 violation, if you're familiar with that section of the code dealing with taking away civil rights under the color of law. It's a very severe charge. Looking at this from another angle, the 911 call came from a patron perhaps 45 minutes or more after the citizens entered the restaurant. Over the course of 45 minutes, not one of Tony's staff saw the need to call the police or ask the citizens to remove their firearms from the premise. The report says the owner received several complaints. Tony gets several complaints and doesn't call the police or ask the customers to leave. I'm not buying it. Doesn't fit up. The report says that the police never tried to get the citizens to conceal their firearms in violation of state law. contradicting what the 7 gun owners claimed. Yet minutes after the incident, there are police text messages that talk about the laws on concealed carry in restaurants that serve alcohol. One officer acknowledges in the email that based on his reading of the law after the fact, the citizens could legally open carry in the restaurant. That bolsters the gun owner's statement that the police, clearly confused about the law, did ask the citizens to cover their guns in violation of state law. It also backs up the statement that the responding officer said that open carry was illegal for non-law enforcement people in Virginia. The report says that citizens did not indicate an interest in talking to the on-site supervisor. But contradicting that, the report admits that officers declined to accept literature. Offering literature would not have occurred in a vacuum. Surely the citizens would have offered verbal communications as they offered the literature. You don't just hand something up like a desk mute, you would speak to the officer and say, I want to talk about this. And the seven citizens claim they did. In one email, the officer admits that the citizens wanted to discuss the law. The report says the responding officer only asked for identification in the form of badges or credentials, believing the citizens were law enforcement officers. This contradicts what the citizen said, that the officer unlawfully asked for regular identification. Now, they can only require that if you violated the law. The citizen's comments make sense. Have you ever heard of a police officer coming up to citizens who are dressed in regular street clothes and asking to see police ID? I've never had anybody ask me for police ID unless I thought I was a police officer. The report says that it was inappropriate for an officer to suggest that the citizen, that it was appropriate for an officer to suggest the citizen leave the restaurant in the spirit of diffusing the situation and resolving the complaint. Diffuse what situation? The 911 caller admitted on the 911 tape that during the 45 minutes that he was in that restaurant finishing his meal, that none of the gun owners had misbehaved in any way. That's on the 911 tape. No misbehaving. The officers were also told by the dispatcher, which is on the tape, that there was no disturbance at the restaurant. So what was the incident they were clearing up? Nothing was going on. They were basically going out there because a citizen didn't know the law, and the dispatcher volunteered to have them go out and check it out, which is fine. Police do that kind of thing. In review, there are a number of problems with the report. Only the hard evidence of emails is acknowledged. The citizens got everything else wrong. Everything. The only things acknowledged are things that can't be denied, the electronic messages. Even then, the report focuses solely on the bad language in the emails and ignores serious violations of authority by the police officers. There is a lot of heat in those emails for a non-event supposedly handled in a low-key, respectful manner. There is a supposedly uncoached ejection from the restaurant that is contradicted directly by a police email that said otherwise. There are messages about carrying concealed firearms in restaurants being traded by the police when concealed carry supposedly never came up in the restaurant. Literature is offered by the citizens, but the citizens supposedly declined to talk. A demand for police ID instead of an unlawful demand for regular ID in a situation where such a demand made no sense. A resolution of a complaint when there was no complaint. There was no crime alleged to be being committed. Amazingly, the report is more concerned about the police breaking protocols by documenting their abuse of citizens in emails than the abuses themselves. Abuse seems to be okay. But not covering up the abuse by leaving an electronic trail is unacceptable. Indeed, it's mentioned in the letter that these officers need to be retrained on the proper protocols for handling emails. I mean, I read that as saying, guys, we better cover our tails better than we're doing it. That's not quite the way I would think a police officer does his job. We insist that City Council call for an independent investigation by an outside agency. And there are agencies that can do this. The police department, which does not have an independent internal affairs division, cannot and should not be trusted to investigate itself, as the report clearly demonstrates. As does common sense. I mean, don't we all wish that we could investigate ourselves if there was a problem and then just tell the police if we did it or not? That would be convenient. So we also feel that after you've had such an investigation, if that then shows there was problems, I think somebody needs to be held accountable. This can't just be swept under the rug and say, well, you know, we did something wrong, oh well. I mean, generally when a citizen does something wrong, he pays a penalty for it. And I know maybe you're a little short of police right now, but, you know, the point of the matter is somebody needs to pay for this. And if that means having one less officer out there that's maybe not quite up to snuff, then you might be better with fewer officers that are actually better. Thank you for your attention in this matter. And please let us know what you will provide for a legitimate, unbiased investigation into the incident. Thank you.